Welcome to Puny Pod, the podcast that has reached the end of the Infinity Saga.
Mr. Stark, you become part of a bigger universe.
On your left.
Puny God.
I'm Ryan, and my co-host through 23 movies, 68 main feed episodes, plus a whole bunch of super secret spoiler shows is David. David, how are you doing this morning?
I can't believe it's been that many. Now, why are you still talking to me at this point?
Crazy.
That
We're at what? 2 years, just over 2 years. Lots of episodes.
Ton of background cat noises. Tons of beer drinking in the secret show.
Yeah.
I'm
many Nic Cage casting.
so
we
many.
haven't been recast by Nic Cage yet.
Oh, man, I wish. Which Nic Cage would play me? Fast Times Nic Cage. Do you do a Face Off Nic Cage? There's so many. There's no wrong answer.
Interview with a Vampire. What's the vampire one that he's in?
Yeah. Spider-Man Noir Nic Cage. Like,
there you go.
I'm there for all of it.
There you go.
I'm doing well. I am doing well. How are you, Mr. Back from Vacation?
Mr. Back from Vacation. I'm doing pretty good, man. Yeah, definitely had a good vacation, cruise vacation. Met I know he's a listener of this network, but I don't know if he listens to our show. Met Tom, so if you're listening, hey there. But yeah, had a really good time on the cruise. Got to watch Captain America again. And I will say it benefits from a rewatch. So if you're somebody who was not fully satisfied with your experience with Captain America, Brave New World, go rewatch it. I think it benefits from that a lot.
And go rewatch it while it's still in the theaters, because I need some revenue from the money.
David needs all 11 of your dollars so that we don't have to watch Fast and the Furious 4 next year.
Don't go cheap. Go to get the double wide screening with the kick up stand, and like, God, does food and beverage count? Give me anything. Get popcorn, get whatever you can. Just need that dinero.
Oh man. Well, today is a celebration. We have made it through 3 phases of the MCU, which constitutes the Infinity Saga. This saga started with Iron Man all the way back in 2008 and wrapped up with Spider-Man Far From Home in 2019. Oh man, I was off by 2 years. 2019 is when Spider-Man Far From Home came out. The Infinity Saga is generally characterized by having Thanos and the Infinity Stones as a background kind of villain and plot situation. So when you're thinking about that, what movies we're talking about, it's those, that kind of first thing that a lot of people say is the MCU, right? I was actually just listening to the Ears Up flagship show, and Taryn was like, isn't Marvel done? Aren't the Avengers done? Which was a little bit funny. But no, so a lot of people, Infinity Saga is kind of what a lot of people think of as the MCU. So we really wanted to put together something here. And in fact, this is the only saga to be completed so far at the time of recording. We're in the multiverse saga as we speak, but it is not quite done yet.
I mean, it might be done to some people. Some people might think we're done with the Infinity Saga, but we are technically not.
Correct. So this is the first end of a saga, so this is something totally new for us. We're breaking new ground here. So we have some really fun stuff in store for you in this episode. We have some fun, like, superlative award situations. We have an inspection of how things could have gone differently. We kind of took the idea of what if that Marvel likes to play with, and wrote some of that. We have a tournament of MVPs, which if you were on the Ears Up Discord, you got to participate in. So really excited for that. And then, of course, at the very end of the episode, we will reveal the ultimate, definitive, written in stone, cannot be wrong rankings of every movie in the Infinity Saga. David, are you ready for all this?
I'm already rethinking my order. So may not be. let's not say this is etched in stone 10 commandments kind of thing.
Fair.
It's a lot for a little reverse engineering if need be. But yeah, I'm ready.
Right on, right on. Well, just before we get started, I do want to let everybody know we will not spoil anything beyond the Infinity Saga, other than maybe how good or bad certain movies are, which we've already spoiled. But we won't give you the spoilers. We'll hold to our usual spoiler promise here. So, with that being said, David, let's get into the superlatives. You want to go one for one? Basically, you do one, I do one.
Sure, works for me.
All right. I'll let you get started, introduce your category, and we'll go from there.
So the first category, if you think about it, the saga begins with a key death, Ho Jensen, and then ends with a key death, Tony Stark. So my question for you is, what is the most impactful death in the saga? It doesn't have to be the most emotional. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be the most shocking or jarring. It's just like, what had the biggest impact on the MCU? So argument could be made for Ho Jensen, who inspired Tony Stark to have a heart in the first Avengers movie, in the first Iron Man movie, the very first movie, the saga. Phil Coulson, whose death and blood-stained Captain America card inspired a team to come together. And, you have Tony Stark's death, which is, obviously very impactful and had ripple effects for, future movies as well. I'm sure you could probably think of some more. Those were kind of like my top three, but do you have any other ones you can think of?
No, I think those are, story-wise, definitely the top three that were impactful beyond their movie, right? Like, there were definitely some emotional deaths. You think of like Killmonger's death in Black Panther, that was
Mm-hmm.
very emotional and very well acted by Michael B. Jordan. You have like the death of half the I guess that's actually one, right? The snap. And the death of half of all living things.
Okay, but were they okay? Let's just sidebar here. Did they really die, or they were just snapped out of existence? Like they were in I think they were in the Soul Stone. They didn't die and then regenerate. Technically, right? Yeah. I was going through it like Odin, not super impactful. He was old anyway.
Frigga a little bit, I guess.
Frigga for sure had very much an impact when we saw her come back, and that was pretty memorable, if you will. Those are my top three. For me, the winner is Ho Jensen, just as the most impactful. And when I remember when we rewatched it, and really kind of struck me how important this moment was for, Tony Stark, for Iron Man, for the beginning of the MCU, and that was my number one choice. And I was going to say probably Coulson was the number two if I had to rank him.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I, not to make too much of an agreement type of podcast here, but I definitely agree. I think Ho Jensen kicked off the MCU right. He basically gave us our first hero. And from there everything else spins out. Coulson is weird because I watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. When it was airing, so that kind of cheapens Coulson's death in some ways. For those who don't know, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was a ABC TV show that is like tangentially MCU canon. It's really weird. We opted early on in this show not to cover it because, well, we love our wives and don't want to cover 20 episode, 5 seasons of like 20 episodes each.
That's not happening.
Yeah. But in that show, Coulson is brought back to life, and Coulson is a main character of that. And so, well, yes, his death did give them something to avenge, famously, right?
Mm-hmm.
it was cheapened because the character lived on theoretically in a story. So yeah, I would agree. 1, 2 is probably Jensen Coulson, and then I think obviously Tony Stark's death, it did impact other movies, and it impacted beyond the it impacted Far From Home, and it will impact further in the like multiverse saga.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Impacted
but
Steve, right?
yeah,
Like if that hadn't happened, I don't know that he necessarily would have gone back to get that dance with his girl, right?
right.
I almost had the question of rank the various Loki deaths.
That's fair. That's fair. There are more than a few of them.
Yeah. So, how about you? What is your next up award?
All right, for mine, we're gonna go. You know what? It's me. So yeah, everybody could have probably guessed this was coming. I am going to go with the best suit up award. So obviously, I love Iron Man. Right, Iron Man is my guy, and one of the things we tracked early on in the series or in the show was the Iron Man suit ups and the ways that he would get his armor on. But beyond Iron Man, I think of Thor, right? Thor, the first time that he lifted Mjolnir, he had a suit up. He also had a suit up in Endgame where he went from bro Thor to kind of battle ready Thor with the braid and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Um I guess you could call the Adidas product placement in Age of Ultron a suit up for Quicksilver.
Okay, well, you can stop there. I have my choice now. You've got Black Panther, where they are in the in the shafts, the mine shafts, and the trains are going by, and you can see their costumes kind of disappearing. It's kind of an
Yeah.
unsuit up, if you will.
Oh, and there is Killmonger's suit up, which is really cool. Where he the first time he shows up in like his Gold Panther suit, and I guess Black Panther did this too. I think T'Challa did this too, where like their like Armani suit gets destroyed by the Black Panther suits kind of coming out, which are
Yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah, but it's a lot of Tony Stark. Let's be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah.
Let's not kid ourselves. How about so? I kind of went. I struggle with this one a little bit because there are so many, right?
Yeah.
I really like the Tony Stark jumping off the building one. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I have a certain fondness for the very first clunky Hoyinson assisted, not to keep going back to it, the very first one where you're just like, they've got the losing power on the laptop. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just that's a pretty, and he's getting welded into it.
The Mark
That
1
the
suit up.
Mark One, it's so good.
That's a
What,
good one.
what's your this is your category.
Yeah.
What is your MVP suit up?
My winner here is going to be the Hulkbuster in Age of Ultron. So when he calls in Veronica, and because Hulk has been turned by Scarlet Witch and is attacking the city in South Africa that they're in, and I don't think it's Johannesburg, but um so yeah, just really cool. You see the pieces fly in from space and kind of build the suit around Tony, and it's kind of the suit within a suit, which could be a little bit of hat on a hat, but here we are. I'm here for the gratuitous suit action, and I love that suit up. It's so 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 fun. And I will say an honorable mention. I did not say suit down, but the coolest suit down is definitely when Tony lands on what will become Avengers Tower. And he's walking inside,
Mm-hmm.
and he's got the like gantry that comes up around him, and it pulls off the pieces like literally as he walks. It's pretty
Yeah,
great.
yeah, you are correct. It was Johannesburg. The pieces that come flying in are pretty good. I also like the one, even though I don't love the movie. I also like the one from Iron Man 3 where he's trying to call the pieces, right, and it's trying to get out of the barn.
Yeah, that was pretty great. Oh, it's pretty great.
That was that was 3. Yeah.
Yeah, that was 3. That was
Yep.
3 because the kid, yeah, they were, yeah. And that was the whole thing, is he was doing 3 was like modular armor. There was a lot of there was a lot of suit ups in 3 ultimately, which is funny because that movie he spent a lot of time out of the suit.
Mm-hmm.
But because of that I think probably that is the most suit ups in a single movie because of that last fight. And the number of times he jumps from suit to suit and all that.
Yeah, totally. It's just your CGI suiting up pornography that runs favorite scenes.
Yep.
So,
Well, David, what you got next for us?
I'm going to ask the question. So we're going to get into the rankings in a little tiny bit, but the question I have for you is like, what was the most improved? So if you think of like in, sports, they will name the player that is most improved from the year before. And on rewatch, which movie improved for you? Like you had a certain perception going in, and then you watch, you're like, oh, okay, that was actually much more enjoyable than I remember.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a tough one. I'm not gonna lie, because because I enjoy all these movies, as evidenced by my excessive use of the top
I was
third.
going to say because you rank them all number one. Is that
Yeah,
one of
exactly.
them has to be the worst, Ryan? That's
Yeah,
how the ranking
yeah.
systems work.
Um, but no, I think looking through this, I think the one to me that felt like it improved the most was probably Avengers Age of Ultron. Um, I think I said on the episode I didn't hate it when I initially watched it, but I grew to understand the flaws, right? I grew in talking to folks. I understood the flaws over time. And I think coming back to it now, with the pieces that they've pulled from it and the way that it did a lot of setup and the way that setup has paid off, I think it's a more enjoyable experience to watch Age of Ultron today than it was to watch it when it came out, or even in the years immediately following it. So I would say Age of Ultron. How about you?
I think that's the right answer, to be honest. It was like you're saying, you understand the flaws behind it. It's not that bad, right? In 2023 and 4 to kill for an Age of Ultron movie, right?
Sure.
But other ones I had considered, Incredible Hulk was actually better on rewatch than I think I had stuck in my head that this is just a train wreck, and it's not great. Don't get me wrong.
No.
Not to spoil what will you'll hear from me in a little bit, but I thought that one was better on rewatch. I thought original Thor was better on rewatch than I had remembered. Those were probably my top 3, I think.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. And I think like Incredible Hulk I think Incredible Hulk benefits from the lens of like, oh, we can look at this kind of unseriously, you know? Like we can look at this as kind of like it's bad so we can enjoy it for it being bad instead of trying to enjoy it like for just being good, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. Once you remove the veneer of expectations, and you're just like, okay, I'm just going to enjoy the movie and appreciate for what it is. It's it's not as knee jerk awful as I seem to recall it at the time. At the time, I was like, because also too, once you see the movies that follow it, you're like, oh, these are so much better, and it's true, they are still
Yeah.
objectively better. But you can come to appreciate, original some of the earlier stuff. Again, original Hulk. Are they as good as the Avengers? No, but they're still decent movies.
Yeah. All right. Now for my next question, and I think, there's only so many options for this one, but I will let David answer it first, which is the best soundtrack. And for this we're considering both the score plus the like popular music soundtrack. So, some of these movies don't necessarily feature a lot of popular music. Some of them are score heavy. Some of them are popular music heavy. So David, what's your choice for the best soundtrack in the
Easy,
MCU?
Captain Marvel, especially when
Now
they
that's
know
what
that
I
I'm
call
just a
90s.
girl. And Dan is not listening to this, but he would be rolling over in his virtual, not in a grave. That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, no, it's for me. For me, it's the first Guardians movie. The soundtrack is so good. It's so perfect. And the having read how Gunn went about selecting songs and not just like, sometimes soundtracks, he just layers stuff in that kind of fits, which I think is actually how Captain Marvel comes across.
Yeah.
And it's so good. It's the music is diverse. It's catchy. You immediately, it's one of the only movies where I know every song in the soundtrack
Yeah.
and can listen to it front to end, and it's great. That's my choice.
Yeah.
That's
That's a great choice. Both Guardians movies have, I mean, the awesome mixes are great. Like I will occasionally just go to Spotify or wherever and play the playlist that is the awesome mix. Famously, the Guardians movie inspired actually the entrance to my wedding. Not my like not the ceremony, but the reception. We walked into "Come and Get Your Love" by Redbone.
it would be weird if you're walking down the aisle to it.
And I did the full, do the full Star Lord dance with
The
it and
little
everything.
twirl. That's great.
But yeah, so really great choice there. I mean, like you say, top to bottom, great work. I think the score, on the score side, you obviously have Avengers, which was great, and set up the theme music for Marvel, so to speak. Now it's a little bit of like generic theme music. I feel like I think at this point they've fairly established the like da da da, but I would not say it stand out as like the best of all time or anything. Um, so where I am gonna go though, is I'm gonna go and this should surprise no one because if you listened to the phase review, you know exactly where I'm headed here. I'm gonna go with Black Panther. Um, very similar in what not not similar music by any means, but in what David was saying of like it set the stage for the movie. I think Kendrick Lamar's like Kendrick Lamar's curated popular music side that had a lot of original songs from a lot of really great rap and hip hop artists, um, blends so well into that movie, and it set the tone of that movie. It is a soundtrack that I will still turn on. Ops is on there, and that is like I literally like last week just was like sitting on the balcony of the cruise and I turned on that soundtrack just because it's just such an enjoyable like set of songs to listen to. Um and it sets the tone for that movie so well. And Ludwig Göransson, who did the score, um and his use of kind of, we talked a lot about it in the episode about Black Panther, his use of the traditional African drums and flutes and the way that those are even built into the production of the music that Kendrick Lamar curated. It's really well done.
Yeah, it is very well. It's obviously much different than like the catchy Guardian soundtrack that you
Right.
listen to, right? But yeah, both those are both great. There's not you can't go wrong with either set of
Yeah.
songs and soundtrack for sure.
Yeah, I feel like Guardians is the one you turn on when you need to do chores around the house, and then Black Panther is the one when you're about to go out. That's when
Okay,
they
yeah,
play.
yeah, I like that. That works for me. The
All right,
the
David.
next category. So we just a second ago we talked about the most improved. They don't really have this award in sports where you talk about the least improved, but the person, the player that got worse year over year. And for this one, we're looking at. I'm asking the question as to what movie on rewatch lowered your, was worse than you had recalled. And I think each one of these, we always talk about what we're most looking forward to when going through the movie. And now I'm asking, we've gone through 23 of these. Which one for you was like, oh man, that's not as good as I remember, either because it's a favorite you've seen 100 times and you're looking at it critically, or you just don't watch that often and you have vague memories. So
Yeah.
what's it for you?
Oh, this one is painful, man. But I'm gonna say Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
Iron Man
Easy,
2.
easy winner.
It's aged like milk. It is, between the cameos in it that are of a questionable nature. At least, if you have a certain persuasion, they're of a questionable nature. And the abject sexism and misogyny in that movie, it's gross. I actually was recently re-listening to our super secret spoiler show for Iron Man 2, and we talked about it there. It is gross. Like that movie is gross. And it kind of gets gross year after year, worse year after year. And all that aside, like, the villain wasn't great. The choice to do like Whiplash or Crimson Dynamo, whatever they were gonna do, like, was he's not a great comic book villain, and so he's just a wooden prop in the comics, basically. And so he was a wooden prop in the movie, and the story is, eh. It's a cut off at the legs version of um Demon in a Bottle, which, they couldn't do. I don't think that they could reasonably have done Demon in a Bottle right at the time. They couldn't have taken that kind of risk on like a true substance abuse story. Um and so yeah, that one
It's a hot mess.
yeah.
It's a hot mess. No, that's the answer. I mean, when you said the questionable cameos, I was like, I don't think Stanley was that bad in it, but okay, if you feel that strongly. The villains were not great. The best things you can say of the movie were the fight scene.
Yeah.
The CGI fight scene at the very end was really cool with Rhodey and with Iron Man. I
Cool
particularly
suit up. There is
very,
a cool suit up where with the briefcase armor.
that is very cool. That is very cool. Man, you've got some amazing accent work in that movie. His Russian accent to this day, chef's kiss. It's so good. It's so good. That's my favorite part of rewatch is just how bonkers this guy is.
Yeah.
And the Hammer character was kind of fun, but it's not good. And I think with especially the cameos and just the really, really, really gross stuff, it's just like hard to watch. Anyway,
Yeah, for sure.
that's the LVP.
Well, we both decided to take the rough route here at the end. What I'm gonna go with is, and this is inspired by you, David, because these are, when we're watching these movies, I know you pick these out, and this is one of your favorite things to look at. But the worst fake thing from the MCU. So this could be worst bad accent, worst bad wig, worst CGI. There's a lot of I think of Scarlett Johansson's wig in Iron Man 2. I think of uh Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2 is going to get beat up here for a second, because I think the accent work by Mickey Rourke also
What?
qualifies here. I'm trying to think of something not from.
So, so okay, you have a number. I mean, we could have just done like worst MCU wig, and we
Yeah.
would have been like, it's Thor, it's Loki, it's Odin, it's everybody
Oh,
from
the
all those
fat suit. The
the
fat
fat
suit
suit.
from Endgame.
Right, you got the fat suit. You've got like, and when you said what was the worst fake thing, I was like, the relationship between Pepper and
Oh,
Tony in Iron Man 2 and 3. Like,
true that.
that kind of
True that.
for me. And if you start talking about CGI, the Hulk stuff, I know the transformation CGI is really not great in the Incredible Hulk. For me, I think I'm gonna go with a oldie but a favorite. The first Thor. It's the combination of the wig that Chris Hemsworth is wearing and his dyed eyebrows to match the yellow. The two together are just like jarring. Like I can't notice anything. I can't just look at the eyebrows and the fake wig. That's gonna be my worst. But like, honestly, the accent work. Some of the accent work's pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that would be my number one. How about for you? What's your favorite fake thing?
I am gonna go. Well, you know what? I'm gonna pull out some facial hair stuff here. I am going to go, and this was such a small part, but the was once a after credit scene is no longer an after credit scene. It's now at the end of the Incredible Hulk. The half hanging off fake mustache on William Hurt in the bar at the end when he's drunk, that is crooked, and it's just like, guys, what? I know he's drunk, but that's an actual mustache. It shouldn't be crooked. Like,
That's too funny. That's a good one. That's a good one. Well, one day when we run out of content, we just have our Marvel facial hair podcast. That's all we can rely upon. Just rewatch all the movies and just pick out the crappy beards and mustaches,
there we go.
wigs.
There we go. But yeah, so yeah, and there's a lot in this category. This is a fun category, ultimately these are very good movies. So when anything is a little bit off or a little bit bad, it stands out like a sore thumb, and you sort of really, really see it when that happens. The other one I think of that I forgot to mention is Star-Lord. I think it's in the first Guardians when Star-Lord gives his helmet to Gamora, and like his freezing animation is just terrible.
That's pretty bad. I thought you were going to say his weird hairstyle where he's got the weird comb over, but that's a good one too.
Yeah. Oh, well, let's get into this little bit of fun. We're going to pull something out from our super secret spoiler show. For those who don't know, we record a super secret spoiler show. We put it on the Ears Up Patreon, and you can listen to it there or wait 2 years and it will come out on this feed. But one of the things we do in that, and I will save you the clip here because most of the clips I've pulled to usually introduce this segment are not safe for main feed. So we like to think about Nic Cage. He's our favorite actor of all time. Famously is about to rack up his second Marvel appearance. First was Ghost Rider, now he's going to be Spider-Man Noir. But we like to think about what if he was in Earth 616 MCU, right? What if he was in the main MCU? And usually we do this kind of movie by movie, right? Who would he have been in this movie? But here in the Saga review, we want to do it a little different. So the question is, who are you casting Nic Cage as for the entire saga? So if you pick him as Tony Stark, he is Tony Stark the whole time. And to sometimes we think of this as like, oh, this is something Nic Cage could actually play. Like, we would love to see him actually play this character. And sometimes it's a little bit different, right? Sometimes it is Nic Cage going bonkers and doing his Nic Cage thing on a very unserious role. So in this case, we're gonna each pick one serious, one unserious. So David, do you want to get started? Do you want to pick first?
This is a tough one. Because when you think about him appearing in all across the saga, it makes me want to pick somebody so I could just see him like ham it up for the entire time. But I don't think that was the intent of the serious one, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure. No. That you go for it in this unserious, but yeah.
So, there are some ones that kind of jump out at me. I'm going to say, oh man, my mind is racing with options. The first one that jumps out to me is Loki.
Okay.
He could be quirky, a little weird, a little mischievous.
Yeah.
He would bring his own wig for sure, so you're going to save some money there. He'll certainly have his own costume. I think he could pull the character off, fairly well. And bears a slight resemblance, very slight resemblance to Tom Hiddleston. How about you?
That's a good pick. I like that. I think, he definitely, looking at his more serious times, there's a lot of Loki there. There's a lot of like that piece, and I think that the directors would have their hands full with keeping him reined in, but looking saga wide, I think, and this would be a different version of this character than what we got.
Don't say Black Panther.
No, I'm going to say Nick Fury, and I would say Eye Patch. Actually, I think he's Nick Fury's grandpa, if I remember right. Now they've established in the comics that the old school Nick Fury that was once played by John Travolta, if I remember correct. So yeah, old school original Nick Fury with the iPad. Well, he's got an eye patch now, but original like Agent of Shield, Nick Fury, I would say is a serious role for Nic Cage. I think you would let him get a little silly, and like the arguments with the World Security Council and those sort of things are where you would let his unhinged out a little bit, but he could also rein it in. I think it would be interesting to see him trying to mentor Spider-Man in like Far From Home.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one place where I'm like, I don't know if that really fits, but
DH,
yeah,
Nicolas Cage, and Captain Marvel.
there you go. Yeah,
Right?
Fast Times era Nick Cage.
It's a good call. I mean, you don't want him to be like Tony Stark, right? You can't be Captain America, can't be Steve Rogers, can't be someone that present in the movies. But Fury's in enough of them where you would you'd get a good sprinkling of them. I also considered Doctor Strange.
Yeah,
I think
I thought about that one too.
I thought he can pull off a kind of a pompous jerk, brilliant doctor, if you will.
Also, I have to quickly correct myself. It was Hasselhoff who played Nick Fury.
Yes, that is correct. The Hoff. God, we're not. You promised me we're not going to see that, right?
I mean, it could be somebody's choice from a bet.
Oh boy, oh boy! Come on, you guys you really got to get. I got to win this year. I can't go see the Fury. Anyway, yeah, I think those are probably the best choice. What is your choice for nonsense Nick Cage? Because this is what's originally spawned the category. Like, what outrageous would you want to see him? What role would you want to see him play?
Oh, this is hard because like I love all these characters so much, and it's all so good. Oh man, so many options.
Let's do this. Phase 1. Let's say pick one from phase 1. We'll go phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Phase 1 for me, easy. Iron Man and Iron Man 2. Just the complete
and Avengers.
Yeah, no, he would be in Iron Man 2 specifically.
In
Iron Man 2, yeah, as Tony Stark.
What?
And he is just drunk, and he is hitting on Scarlett Johansson, and he is just unhinged. That's my vote for. That's my nonsense vote for phase 1. How about you?
Yeah, I would say, that's a really good one. And honestly, saga wide, just like all the way top to bottom, him replacing Robert Downey Jr. would be bonkers.
It'd be terrible. It would not be good. It would not be good. I just want to see him just in that one role. But if you're saying for the entire saga, you are going to, as a joke, have him play a character for the entire saga.
I'm gonna go. We're going to fix the problems with Incredible Hulk, and we are going to have him be Bruce Banner the entire time.
Okay, and that you're
Imagine
serious or
him.
you're non-serious?
I mean, so
I could see him doing it.
I think there
Really,
is a serious version of this. I agree. I think there is a very serious version of Nic Cage as Bruce Banner, but I'm imagining that they let his unhinged side go, and specifically I'm imagining the transformations,
okay.
and he's asking to do like somehow do. Tra- he's asking to be painted green and do like like actual practical transformation.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Like, what a cheap way to get that Nicolas Cage impression in, but I like it. Now, I mean, he could actually have played.
Yeah.
You know, he he and Edward Norton both strike me as like somewhat serious, similar actors. Both very serious. They're both are known for being a little quirky, a little difficult. And so I could see him doing that for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Who's your unserious overall?
Oh man, overall, it's a tough choice. There are so many great, awful roles that he could fill. I had thought about him as Gamora. I had just like how that just changes the dynamic. Um, I don't know, man. This is a really tough one. I feel like for me, I think it's just going to be he's the new Peter Parker, Spider Man, not Spider Man Noir, but just trying. He's like every time in the Marvels, like or in the Marvel Sony movies, the actors got progressively older. Like just shove them in there, like 58-year-old or 60-year-old.
No de-age.
No, no,
And he's
none.
still in high school. It's still high school.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
It would be, see how awkward the scenes with him and Zendaya are going to be.
Oh God.
When he's on like the field trips and like clearly he's older than everybody else in the bus. Like it's going to be great.
Underoos.
Tony Stark going in for the awkward hug. It's going to be great. You get him and I get him in like, it's going to be great.
Oh, well, what a time to be alive. We have enough resources this could happen. We just need to find somebody with some good AI and just make it happen.
Exactly.
Why
can't we have nice things? What's your nonsense? Is your nonsense one the Hulk?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the Hulk. I mean, I know that there's some seriousness to that, but or you know what? Here, because there's too much seriousness wrapped up in that one, I am going to go for a full nonsense. I'm going to go fully off the edge. I'm going to go with Thanos.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
Just bonkers, like totally. It's not going to be the Josh Brolin version of Thanos. It's just going to be, he's yelling a lot, and when he breaks the other's neck, he's having a goofy grin on his face or something. Like
just completely off the rails. I love it. It's a good one.
Well, let's move on to the category that actually had some audience participation. And I was really excited to do this one. So each movie we name an MVP, right? And we have kind of a rule where we can't pick the same person twice. David and I can't pick the same person twice. And so, it kind of played out that we could choose our MVPs. We won't go through who our MVPs were for each movie. Go listen to the individual episodes for that. But what we did here is I actually posted up, I made some categories. Basically, I broke this down into 4 categories, which was hero, villain, supporting cast. So these are kind of, Harley Keener, Nick Fury, Dum Dum Dugan, some of those sort of folks. And then guest selected. So episodes where we had guests select their MVPs. So they kind of got into their own category. I put it out to a vote on the Ears Up Discord in the Marvel channel. And what we're doing from there is I took the top 2 vote getters, and David and I are going to argue them out for each category, and then kind of tournament style argue them against each other. Just to set the ground rules here, for most of these, it's kind of just gut feel, right? Which one was better? And it doesn't have to be from a specific movie. And I don't want to get too lost in the weeds of technicalities and stuff. There's not a whole lot riding on this. So just which one's better, right? Not necessarily which one would win in a fight. Not necessarily which one would be better portrayed by Nic Cage. Just which one is better. So first up, we actually are going to do a little bit of a play-in game here. So we have the supporting cast up first, and in the supporting cast, there was a clear winner. The clear winner, as voted on by the community, was Ho Yinsen. But we had a tie for the second place the in the supporting cast category. So David, we're gonna practice our arguing chops here. We're gonna try. Oh, as I smack my mic, we're gonna try and get through this here. First argument to be had is who's better, M'Baku or Nick Fury?
It's a good question. You have to go with Fury, right? Like he's instrumental in so many movies. An argument could be made though that he's not really supporting, just because you take a movie like Captain Marvel and he's the
hero, yeah.
He's one of the main characters, and so I think because M'Baku, we've only seen him in. I mean, technically, we've seen him in more than one movie, but really, like in a speaking part, really, we've only seen him in one movie. So for me, it'd have to be Fury. You?
Yeah. That's fair. I leaned towards M'Baku. But yeah, I leaned towards M'Baku just because I love M'Baku. I think he's a really fun character, really, really funny. Winston Dukes did a great job with him. But I think for the sake of this, I think something I think about is taking it out of the movie context and kind of looking at it as a saga context. I would say Nick Fury, he could have been the MVP in multiple movies, and so I will give the nod to Nick Fury.
Now, technical question here: are we taking real Nick Fury or Talos Nick Fury? Those two characters,
Yeah.
and split them up.
Right? Yeah, I don't know.
That's fine. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just being stupid.
So, next argument here is Ho Yinsen versus Nick Fury, which this is actually a tough one because we just crowned Ho Yinsen as one of the most important characters in the MCU, right? His death was one of the most important things to the MCU. We just did that in our spoiler news.
I completely agree. And he's also in the movie for 12 minutes. So I would
he's also in Iron Man 2, so
oh yeah. When you get the little flashback
in
scene.
Burn. Yeah.
Oh my god, I blocked that out.
Before Tony goes to get his beak wet. Or it's Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3, not
it's the same principle. It's fine. We'll allow it. I still have to go with Fury. I think because he has played such a pivotal role in so many movies, it's a little bit unfair. An argument could be made that, from just a supporting cast character, his Ho Yinsen's character was so instrumental to the rest of the Iron Man story in the MCU. But I have to go with Fury.
Yep, I agree. I agree. Let's move on to our second category here, which is what do I want to do next? Let's do our guest selected. So this one I can read through all the candidates because there's just not as many of them. So I'll read through all the candidates from our guest selected. So I think this was selected by Dan. Kenneth Branagh for not directing Thor Dark World. Senator Stearns from Iron Man 2, which was selected by our guest. I believe that was Grant who selected that one. Curtis selected Justin Hammer. Jan Rog was selected from Captain Marvel by Dan again. Peter Quill / Star Lord was selected by Rob from the Bantha Milk podcast. Doctor Strange from specifically Infinity War was selected by Eric, our specialist from the actually all the rest of these are all from Avengers movies, so it's all Eric's selections. Steve Rogers / Captain America from Endgame specifically, and then Agent Coulson from Marvel's The Avengers. So the community voted, and our top 2 vote getters were Steve Rogers from Endgame and Agent Coulson. So, what do you think?
And that's specifically Cap from Endgame. We're picking them from a particular movie, right?
You know what? Since at this point Cap won't show back up, spoiler alert for the other 2 parts of the bracket, Cap won't show back up. You can think of Cap at any point during the saga.
Okay. I mean, then okay. I will say it's Cap. Cap. I mean, Cap is arguably the MVP of the entire saga. So I don't think RAP Agent Coulson, but I don't think it's particularly close.
No, and that's fair. And I think especially once you open it up to the saga, I think Endgame. I think honestly, I would have picked it the same if we were considering Endgame alone. I think Cap in Endgame is so good, and his, it is his movie. In some ways, it's like Cap, you gave up Civil War, is you let it be an Avengers movie, and you got Endgame in return.
What was the worst Cap version that we saw? Was it First Avenger? Because he was really good in that. Like, anyway, you know what? I'm not going to.
Yeah, no. I think you're right. I think First Avengers the worst, but it's still very good.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see here. So villains are villains, bad guys, and listeners, don't at me because I chose certain people as villains. I just I had to make this a little bit simple. So actually tied for first place, which makes it easy because we were only trying to get 2 people, are Loki and Killmonger. So,
arguably, neither one are villains.
Right, exactly. Neither both have an argument for just being misunderstood. So David, this is a tough one. This is incredibly hard.
This is tough. I think that Killmonger is top 3 just MVPs or villains in Marvel that we've seen. He was, Michael B. Jordan's performance is just electric. He's off the charts.
He was on fire.
Oh,
sorry, that was a terrible Fan4 stick.
All right, I'm logging off. Good seeing everyone. Take care, everyone. Have a good rest of the day. Next up, we'll be watching.
We have 2 Human Torches in this this voting because we have both Rogers and
who's the best torch? Wait till we get to it. Loki, on the other hand, is beloved. He was written in to help save, I think it was
Dark World.
Yeah, Dark World. I'm gonna have to go with Loki, I think.
Ooh. And what's hard is we don't have a decider vote because there was something in my head that was like, oh, maybe the top vote getter will be the decider, and I'm stuck on Killmonger, man. Oh man,
Loki's arc, if you look at it like from the very beginning, I mean, I would say of all the main, capital M main characters, you saw so much development, so much of his character development change over time. He provides humor in various movies. He, his death at the very beginning of Endgame. No, sorry, Infinity War is just jaw dropping. He's I don't know. For me, he is villain MVP. I'm not counting anything of his TV series because that's in the
That's
future.
not yet.
That
Yeah.
doesn't exist as of this date in our very linear view of the MCU. So why would you put Killmonger above Loki?
Yeah, and I think it's trying to set aside a little bit of the longevity and just like, who do I like more in my brain? And I like Killmonger. I really like his arc. Obviously, his reason for being a quote unquote villain is really interesting and is something we'll get into here in a second when we get into the what ifs, because the what if you selected, I don't think it would have happened in that what if, but
Let's go with Killmonger then.
no, I think you're right. I think Loki is right. I think when you take the whole saga, which is important because we're in the saga review, take the whole saga into account. I see the Loki call, so I'll agree with you on Loki. And Killmonger, just know, no matter how this ends, we're at double elimination. I think you would have been, probably second or third, even though you had lost your first game here.
Tough beat. Tough matchup in the first round of the tournament.
It is. It is. All right, now for our heroes. So moving over to our hero vote over on the Patreon, we had a very, very where'd it go? There they are. I believe we had a very clear winner. It's only by one vote. So the number one vote getter was Peter Parker / Spider-Man. That one surprised me a little bit that the community came out so strong for Peter Parker. But it is what it is. And then our second place in that category was this one did not surprise me, was T'Challa Black Panther. So we are looking at Spider-Man versus Black Panther, both introduced in Civil War. Both phase 3 heroes, right? They what's interesting is all of these other categories, right? It's been like somebody who was there for one movie or a couple of movies versus somebody who was there for the whole time.
Right.
This one actually is a little bit more level playing field because they were in the same movies essentially.
Mm-hmm. Both got blipped away. Both came
Got
back.
blipped. Yep. So David, well, actually, I'll go ahead and I'll stake my claim.
Okay.
I'm gonna say, and there is in no part is this reparations for the fact that I never picked T'Challa as an actual movie MVP, which is a absolute crime, and I should have. I was like, I don't know what I was thinking. I think I was trying to make it so that David and I didn't agree on people, or we ended up agreeing even. We agreed on Killmonger. I don't know. Anyway, I am going to pick T'Challa, Black Panther as the hero representative from in the tournament of MVPs. I think his impact walking through the portal, coming through with all the Wakandans, doing their war chant was so strong. The his movie is one of my top 3 movies of the entire MCU. Spoiler alert for the ending here. But it's one of my top 3. There's Peter Parker's great, but he's no T'Challa. So David, what you got?
I would agree. Yeah, it's not even close for me. No, it's. I mean, if we're talking about, valuable. He obviously. He was my MVP for Civil War. His more so than Peter Parker Spider Man. His movie, I think, was more iconic, more impactful for the MCU, but out for for the community, for folks in real life. I don't see people like tearing up when they see the Spider-Man poster at the movie theater and taking photos with it. It's just it doesn't have the same kind of cultural impact. Spider-Man's fine. I think again, Tom Holland has been a fantastic Spider-Man, but it's just, for me, it's just not even close. So
Yeah. I agree. And I think that's a tough break for Spider-Man. That's like an unwinnable uh challenge. And what's interesting is Iron Man, my boy Iron Man, did not make it through anywhere. He did not get into the tournament. So let's see here. So we're gonna go back up to the top. So we've got the winner from our supporting cast, aka Nick Fury, versus Steve Rogers. This is an interesting one. And at this point, they're fairly even, similar amount of screen time,
I mean, they've similar. Fury's
similar
been in
number of
more,
movies.
yeah. Fury's been in more movies. I think that the character has been, that's the character that's been in the most. I think,
Most, yeah,
yeah. Especially if you like, tuck in the end parts of certain movies. For me, and so it's Fury versus Steve. I have to go with Captain America. I have to go
yeah,
with it's. Again, as I said before, he is one of the most important characters in the MCU. He has, I think, the perfectly kind of captured the character. You also get a cool arc from him as well. He gets his dance at the end. So Steve's my choice.
yeah. I think Steve is very valuable, especially in the front of the screen, right? He's the hero who's out there. Nick Fury's doing a lot behind the scenes, right? He's setting up the Avengers Initiative. He's doing that whole thing, and this is not to say that Nick Fury is not important, right? Like that should be noted here. We're talking about we're literally talking about the four most valuable characters from a 23 movie saga. These folks are definitely like top of the top, and so I would agree though that Steve Rogers ultimately comes out on top. He's who takes the Infinity Stones back at the end. He is instrumental in getting the Infinity Stones. I would say he's probably, in my estimation, top two characters from the entire MCU are probably, to me, Iron Man and Steve Rogers. But plus, he grows a mean beard and looks really good with it.
So
When he's
funny.
allowed to show it and he doesn't have to have his hand over it at 20.
And yeah, at the end of the first Avengers movie. Yeah, no, that's the choice. I agree.
All right, now for the one that's going to set the internet on fire, man. This is the argument. Loki versus Black Panther.
So arguments for Loki. I mean, if I'm just going to pick one, I'm going to pick Black Panther. If you want me to explain why, the rationale, but it's for the reasons I stated. Like, I think Loki is. I almost see Loki as almost like a main character, supporting character, but
Yeah.
if you view him as a kind of a main character, nowhere near the impact, nowhere near the presence, nowhere near the importance. So
Yeah, and I think the Infinity Saga kind of gives him a little bit of a handicap, if you will, because I think, not to spoil too much, but I mean, you guys know, even if you're living under a rock and you haven't watched the MCU, you know that Loki has his own TV show in the multiverse saga, and things like that. That like Infinity Saga, he was a really fun character to watch, but it kind of ended at that. He had a good, like you said, good arc, but it wasn't important necessarily. Um, Whereas Black Panther opened up Wakanda, right? Story wise, very important. Opened up an isolationist nation, and brought it to the world. Um, Off screen importance of Black Panther is huge, right? We talked about that so much in that episode of like his movie was so important, the character is so important, um, and so I do think like Black Panther, Black Panther gets it. Last the championship round here. Steve Rogers versus T'Challa. Steve Rogers been in the MCU since Phase 1, super soldier from World War II, took the plane into the ice, was frozen for 75 years, came back, obviously through, he went through Avengers. He was in the Battle of New York in Avengers. He went through phase 2 doing like kind of super spy type of stuff. Winter Soldier was a super spy movie. Moving on into Age of Ultron, where he kind of started to take on a little bit of a mentorship role. Into phase 3, where we see him standing up as the anti-regulation guy, in Avengers Civil War. I mean, Captain America Civil War.
Mhm.
And then into Infinity War, where he's on the run. He's a fugitive, right? He's on the run in Infinity War, and in Endgame, he's the organizer, right? He's the ultimate leader by the time we get to Endgame, because Tony has retired, and Steve's got to do his thing.
Yep. Yep.
So, and he gets his dance at the end.
And he gets his dance.
Full circle. Missing the dance for diving the plane into the ice, and coming back and getting his dance at the end.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and then T'Challa, introduced in Captain America Civil War, basically brought to action when his dad is killed in a bombing at the UN. And he becomes king of Wakanda at that point, and moving into his own movie, um, kind of trying to protect his nation from an outside interloper, who believes that they could be doing more for um, people of African descent around the world, and into Infinity War, where he harbors Steve Rogers, right? He's harboring Steve Rogers and Winter Soldier, and he blips, comes back in Endgame through the portals with all the Wakandans, and fights the big fight.
So the way I see this is sort of like when you look at like a player that's might be going to the Hall of Fame. Are you looking at like peak, that at the peak was like
Right.
the best player of for a few number of years, or are you looking at the player that had like the body of work, the accumulation of stats? Not that, I mean, I'm not trying to say like Captain America was like Harold Baines or anything. To be clear, but are you looking at like peak, like apex versus like consistency? And it's just sort of, how do you value that? For me, I probably would pick Steve Rogers just for the overall impact for the MCU from, the very beginning, from the, very onset, the first phase, if you will.
Yeah. Third movie, if I remember, fourth movie, because there were 2 Iron Man movies before that, and Incredible Hulk. So yeah, I think I agree that it is Steve Rogers, and it is the length of time. And I think what's unfortunate, and I want to say this for anybody who's yelling at their radio right now listening to this.
Are we on the radio?
T'Challa is so good, and obviously that character's life was cut short because the actor's life was cut short. And it was tragic. It is tragic. It's challenging, and like we David and I have talked a lot about this both on and off air, about how much like it it is brutal to lose Chadwick Boseman, and the work that Chadwick Boseman did was so good. And T'Challa is such an important character, and I think at this point you are thinking of hundreds of characters, hundreds of named characters at this point, through 23 movies, and we're talking about the top 2, right? We're talking about Black Panther versus Captain America. So I would agree. I think that because of the time spent in the MCU, Steve Rogers does win, but that is not a slight against Black Panther by any means.
I mean, look, someone has to win. Some
Right.
people, everybody else has to lose. It just is
Yep.
what it is. I mean, I'd say that if you're looking at now, if the category had been like MVP actor, then I probably a much different result, right? Harley Quinn would certainly still be in the final four for sure.
All the pluck, sir.
Oh,
All the pluck.
yeah. No, it's. I mean, Steve goes back. Phase one, we've had 3 Captain America movies. He's been in Avengers movies. It's just very pivotal, and I certainly don't think it's a slight on anybody else.
Yeah.
It's a fun little argument.
For sure. For sure. Well, let's get into some other fun little. So, by the way, MVP of MVPs is Steve Rogers. Although we do have a last minute challenger, Harley. No, I'm just kidding.
Harley Quinn. I still can't believe you picked him.
Let's get into some more fun arguments. So, we really wanted to. David and I have kicked around the idea for this segment for the entire 2 years we've been doing this podcast. It has been something we have thought about adding into many episodes, and we just never have gotten there. And we are here now. The idea here is what if. So there's lots of things. This is based on a little bit based on the comics by the same name, but there's lots of decisions, lots of things that happen that cause these movies to be the way that they are. And it's kind of fun to think about, hey, what if something had changed, right? What if Nic Cage was cast as Peter Parker instead? But like, what would happen if things had changed? And so David and I each wrote up our own what if, and we're going to kind of talk through what the impacts of that would be, what we think would be different, what we think would maybe be the same, what has shifted. So I'll go ahead and I will kick us off, and I'm going to say, what if Disney owned the rights to everything Marvel, so all Marvel characters in 2008? So some things to think about. One is Disney did not own Marvel until after phase 3. Is that, or after phase 1? Is that correct, David? Do I have that right? Or did they own them by
Done it from
Avengers?
the beginning, from the jump. They just didn't have the license to some of the characters. So
But
Sony,
they didn't own them at Iron Man, did they? Because that was put out by Paramount. Or I think I could be wrong.
you're right. Yeah, it was late 2009.
Okay, so it was after Iron Man 1 and 2, after Hulk, Incredible Hulk.
Right.
So yeah, what if Disney owned everything? Basically, what if Disney did the whole MCU and had access to all the characters? Some things to think about in this is who would have been our first heroes, who would have been our first teams. Also, some things to think about is, so I'm going to list real quick the movies that were released outside of the MCU during this time. You had Punisher Warzone, released by Lionsgate, which basically Sony. In 2008, you had X-Men Origins Wolverine by Fox. In 2009, in 2011, you had X-Men First Class by Fox and Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance by Columbia, which is basically Sony. You had 2012's Amazing Spider-Man, so that's the whole Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man saga. In 2012, and then Amazing Spider-Man in 2002 and 2014. Going back to 2013, you had The Wolverine by Fox. You had Days of Future Past in 14. Fanforstic in 2015. Deadpool in 2015, both by Fox. Apocalypse in 16. Logan in 17. In 18, Deadpool 2 and Venom. In 19, Dark Phoenix. All of those would those have been released? What would we have seen? So, David, I will stake my first claim here in saying that I don't think Iron Man would have been our first hero in the MCU.
I don't know that he would have its own movie.
Yeah.
I
I
I, I
yeah.
think, yeah. I mean, so if we went back retroactively, and if Disney had owned Marvel for the past however many years, right? And obviously would have had it prior to 2008, because that's when the first stuff came out. But let's say they've owned it ever since. I don't think. I think Spider-Man still gets made. I think Spider-Man's still like one of the cornerstone.
I think Spider-Man's your first MCU movie.
Yeah.
I think Spider-Man's your first MCU movie. I don't think it's Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. I don't know who it would have been. I can't think back to who was like in that like 15 to 20 age bracket at that time. But I think it would likely have been more of like the Amazing Spider-Man tone, where or not the Amazing Spider-Man, I'm sorry, the MCU Spider-Man tone, where it's a
Mhm.
little bit more silly. It's deeply rooted in high school. It's not like college kids acting like high school kids, which was Amazing Spider-Man. Um and so I think like yeah, I think and it's not it probably wouldn't have had the dark tone that Sony's Amazing Spider-Man took on. So I do think that's your first. I think that's your first um, MCU hero.
What do you think is the first group?
See, and that's where it gets weird, right? Because obviously Spider-Man makes sense to develop into Avengers, right? That's where you build up Avengers around Spider-Man, and then the Avengers stay your first team. But I don't think that's what would have happened, and that's where it gets weird, because I think that they would have. Because I guess for this thought experiment, I'm trying to decide if the X-Men, X-Men X2, X3 still exist. And so they know the viability of X-Men. I think X-Men is one of your first teams.
I don't think it is.
No.
I
What are
don't.
you thinking?
I think they still go. Here's what I think happens is that you'll still have Spider-Man cornerstone. You have you build. I think you still build towards, and this is not with any kind of current thought, like knowing what the how well the Avengers did versus how well like
Sure,
the other
sure.
movies did. You're just you've just got the pile of toys, much to Ike
Right.
Perlmutter's content. Um, I think the X-Men stuff is it's their preferred. I mean, the X-Men are clearly more popular than
Yeah.
in the comics, as far as comics go, than Avengers.
Right, right.
Iron Man's a C character. Captain America, who cares? I mean, not literally, but like in the
Right. No, no, no,
context of
yeah.
comics, right?
Yeah.
But I still think they would save, like they would still do some X-Men stuff, but I could see them doing individual characters. Like, Wolverine is probably the most popular and well-known and iconic X-Men. I could see him having his own individual movie and then leading to an X-Men. And so I think it's sometimes very difficult just launch a group team up superhero movie without a lot of background as to the characters. You just
Yeah.
got like, okay, here's the person that's invisible, and this person can like stretch, and this person can blah blah blah, and so for that reason, I think it's a lot to try to juggle. I think they would have done a much better job. You can have like team ups, you can have like Avengers versus X-Men. I mean, there's a lot of kind of Civil War might look more like that as opposed
Yeah.
to what we got.
Or Civil War might be mutant registration stuff, right?
Yeah, totally.
Um, and I
You
think
mean enhanced registration?
you're right. And I think that's the challenge with X-Men, right? X-Men's kind of like Guardians, where even in the comics, if I remember right, they were introduced as a unit instead of as individuals. And so it it's like hard the building style of the MCU, where it's like individual movie, individual movie, individual movie, team up, individual movie team up, right? Like that doesn't work as well with a team like the X-Men where you have a couple of standout characters, but they don't go off on their own all that often. Right? You have Wolverine who goes off on his own, and he has his own adventures, but you know, you don't see Cyclops going off on his own all that often, or Jean Grey, or you know, a lot of those characters kind of stay within the team, and so
Hmm.
that's I think that would have been interesting, and maybe that's what it would have ended up being is more like Spider-Man, Captain America, maybe still Thor, um, and maybe Iron Man is a background character in Spider-Man's story, right? He's a mentor to Spider-Man because in the comics that was established a few times that Iron Man helped Spider-Man out. And then you work that towards Avengers, and then in phase 2, instead of Guardians, you put in X-Men, right? And you get a Wolverine movie, an X-Men movie, and more fleshing out around your Avengers side. And now you're two parts of the MCU rather than being like Earth-based versus cosmic, it becomes your mutants versus your Avengers, right? It becomes the X-Men side of the story and the Avengers side of the story eventually converging, you know, at the end, like you say, with maybe some Avengers versus X-Men instead of Infinity War Endgame stuff.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's all. Um, it's obviously impossible to say what would have happened, but I do think launching the Guardians, you're talking 5 characters, and you don't need to know a whole lot about them, if you
Yeah.
will. In fact, we actually explore their backgrounds more in following movies. Like the X-Men, dude, I mean, if you think about all of them, there's dozens of characters. And so, you do wonder like how things would look. Would Guardians be made would they appear in phase 2? Probably not. Would we have gotten Fantastic Four maybe right before Guardians? Maybe
I'm actually wondering if we would have ever got Ant-Man. Would Ant-Man like
no, in the
cuz
movie Ant-Man, absolutely
yeah,
not. No.
Ant-Man's so weird in that. Like because Ant-Man is such a huge character in the comics, right? And I don't mean physically. But specifically Hank Pym, less Scott Lang, more Hank Pym.
Mm-hmm.
Huge part of the comics. Not a very popular solo book, but like massive. It created Ultron, right? Um and so it's so weird to think about that of just like if they had all the toys to play with, would they have just gone with like who has the most popular solo books, or would they have taken some of these risks, right? Would they have have had like a more comedic, maybe it would have been more of the uh what's his name who was going to do the Edgar Wright Ant-Man,
Okay.
right? And maybe that's their one of their phase 2 introductions is more the Edgar Wright silly Ant-Man or something, and that works its way in there. Um Man, this is weird. This is wild to think about because I do think Disney, especially now, has a tendency to do the safe thing, right? They're picking the winners, right? They look at the numbers and they say, this guy is selling the most comic books, put him out on the screen. I don't Early days MCU wasn't doing that. And I think part of that was the challenge of like you didn't own the most popular. But they also didn't pick like the third most popular, right? Iron Man was not the bottom of the heap, but he was lower on the tier list. Um and so I think they might have taken some risks like an Ant-Man movie, or um it wouldn't have really even been that much of a risk, but a second Spider-Man movie, right? Miles Morales Spider-Man movie maybe would have already come out because Miles was popular at the time that the MCU's getting going. Miles was in the comics and popular.
Right.
And so maybe you have a 2 Spider-Man movie, right? Maybe you have a Peter and Miles story by phase 1 2.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think we're getting. I mean, one of the other things to think about are like kind of the logical constraints of a film studio and how many movies you can really
Yeah,
bang out in a year. Like, I think 3 is the max from my
yeah.
perspective. Um, and I don't think they're making 5 Spider-Man movies at the
No.
end of the day. So that gets
And
consolidated.
I don't think, I think the other thing I just remembered, because it's our next what if, is Ike Perlmutter's still in charge through phases 1 and 2. And so I think
God, let's hope so.
I think you stifle, I think unfortunately that would mean you would not get a Miles movie until phase 3.
Yeah, yeah. What if they didn't screw up and enter these terrible licensing deals? Is probably how
Yeah,
we should have couched the
right.
question. Yeah, you don't have reverse hindsight, so you don't have the hindsight to, acquire this, not acquire Marvel, not license out the rights, not have, the MCC, right?
Yeah.
Which does, I guess, segues to the next question: is what if the MCC, so the Marvel Creative Committee, was a group based in New York. It was Ike Perlmutter. It was one of the,
Brian
I
Michael
think,
Bendis.
yeah,
I just looked this up the other day. I don't. Yeah, it was a bunch of guys from the comic
yep,
side plus Ike Perlmutter, who's kind
from
of
the
an
toy
exec
side.
side.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, from the toy side. He was then CEO of Marvel, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And that is where the studio folks, Feige, would intersect and interact with them in order to, they would, if you think about it, sort of in theory kind of made sense, because you had people that were grounded in the business, in the comics, right? In the licensing out of stuff, who had a particular background. And you think, oh, yeah, it makes perfect sense to talk to the writers and editors to get their thoughts and notes on different projects and different stories in which we prioritize. It was unfortunately the case that they were very heavy-handed in the case of everyone's favorite CEO, Ike Perlmutter, that discouraged certain movies, that discouraged the representation of certain folks just because they wanted to sell toys, and
Yeah.
that's how they made their money. Like, they were being basically bankrupt. And that's how they were doing business, if you will. Um, and so you think about, when you think about like what if they owned all these rights? Like, what if, and they were, the MCC stuck around for a while till Feige was like, hey, it's either basically it's either him or me.
Right.
And they're like, well, we need Feige to make the movies. We don't need Ike Perlmutter to be a misogynist, racist person. So let's give it to him. He eventually gets pushed out, famously tried to like buy a seat on the board last year. Anyway, I mean, it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so, but it's this interesting dissection point because it happens right. It certainly happened because it happened I think it was during the making of the Winter Soldier, and basically they're out.
Civil War. So it would have been, they were
Civil
still
War,
in
yeah,
control up
yeah.
until Ant-Man, and I think it would have been during the making of Civil War where they were
I,
ousted.
I think it came to a head at Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
And I think at that point in time, and I think it was right around Age of Ultron, right around Ant-Man, so 2015, that the split occurs. But up until that point in time, very heavy hand in terms of notes. And, an argument could be made like, yeah, we made a lot of money. We did you know, at some level, you have to acknowledge the fact that the creative input was probably helpful, because Sony didn't have it, and they made a bunch of terrible movies. And 20th Century Fox didn't have it, and they made a couple good ones, and then a couple really bad ones. And so, I'm not arguing here that the MCC was actually overall a good thing, because it suppressed the making of certain films like Black
Yeah.
Panther, Captain Marvel. But what if it hadn't? Like, what if it hadn't gone away? Right? Okay, so if it doesn't go away, we're not getting those movies.
Yeah. We're not getting Black Panther, we're not getting a Captain Marvel, we're not getting Civil War. So part of what brought it to a head was the MCC had distinct issues with making movies out of heroes fighting heroes. They didn't like the idea of heroes fighting heroes, and that's part of what drove this to a head. And so I think you lose arguably one of the best MCU movies in Civil War. And one of the interesting things about the MCU is that like they did heroes versus heroes well versus like their counterparts over at DC who didn't do it well. Right? You look at DC and Batman versus Superman was not well done. And so I think you lose at least two crown jewels of the MCU, right? You lose Civil War and you lose Black Panther. Those are two absolutely crown jewels of the MCU, and you would lose them both, which I think would be hard.
Yeah, you're probably not gonna get a Shang-Chi, right? You
Right.
start looking at now you will get more Eternals because that was the trade-off. That was the exchange. It was to make Black Panther, and Marvels was to make the Eternals. That was the trade-off of Feige. They
Was it
eventually
the
did make it.
Eternals or was it the Inhumans?
I thought it was the Eternals. I could be wrong. I need to double check that. But it was basically like another team up team to sell more toys, right?
Yeah.
Ostensibly because no one's going to buy, a toy with a female in it.
Right.
Whatever. Yeah, Captain Marvel.
It was Inhumans. It was
Inhumans.
Inhumans.
Okay, I was.
Which go ahead. You're
No,
good.
I was confused. Go ahead.
What I was gonna say is I think that's the other thing you get a lot more of is the ABC TV shows.
Oh God.
Because that was what Ike Perlmutter was doing, right? That he was big on those ABC TV shows, and that is, and part of that it's because that's where they kind of relegated Ike Perlmutter to, like Feige before the formalization of the split. Like Feige was basically told, you have the movies, now you
I have
still have to
TV.
run it
Yeah.
past them, but I have direct control over TV. And so I do think you have more of those ABC shows, which I think impacts then the multiverse saga even further, right? Because I don't know that your Disney Plus shows look the same with a if they had been railroading ABC shows continually.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think Disney Plus might have arrived earlier, right? Like I think they would have jumped into streaming earlier. Uh, I think that they would have had to because they don't have enough. They don't have there's not enough spots on the calendar to release all the movies in a certain way. And it actually kind of the MCU. And this goes back to your what if, like MCU arguably got better because they had more limited toys to work with, and if they had all of them, like
It's that creative constraints thing, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of discussion of that, and I actually was listening to some other podcast, and they were talking with an Imagineer about the Disney parks, and they were like, "Well, why don't you just do this thing? It's just you guys have unlimited money." And the Imagineer was like, "Yeah, but if we took that approach to everything, it would not be good." And I think it's the same thing with these Marvel movies of like, I think we would not have the MCU we have today if they had all the toys. And I think it just wouldn't have lasted as
Right.
long as they would have burned quick, hard and fast.
Yeah, and an argument could be made that and Disney, since Perlmutter left, obviously went on more definitely had more diversity in terms of like the casts and the movies and so forth. That certainly would have changed, right? If the MCC were still around, we would have got more Avengers movies. Probably we would have gotten a Fantastic Four movie in there at some point in time. And some of the projects, especially in the phase 4, phase 5 range, would we have gotten to Marvels? No. Would we have gotten, you know what I mean? Like, and so, would we have gotten Brave New World? Probably not. And I'm not saying it's a good thing if we not, but like, financially, an argument could be made that, hey, stick to the bread and butter, stick to the Spider-Man, stick to the X-Men, stick to the Avengers. May have done better financially. I don't think creatively it would have been better.
I agree.
right?
I agree. I think the interesting thing that the Marvel universe has is it hit this place where financially even the flops are fine, right? Even the flops have done okay. They've made their money back, right? We're not
Mm,
talking. I mean,
mm.
maybe the Marvels, but
Brave Real World is not going to make its money back. I mean,
yeah,
when you factor in like all the marketing stuff, I mean,
that's fair.
those are financial, financially crushing.
But there's no Madam Web, right? We're not at the level of like a Madam Web, Venom 3. We're not at that like they barely crested $10 million or anything like that.
Dude, I
Like
started watching Craven. It is so bad.
yeah,
Oh my
and
god.
so
Oh my god.
I
I
think like
almost swallowed my tongue. I had a seizure. It was terrible. Anyway, so go
I
ahead.
think ultimately the creativity is what has created the longevity for the MCU
Hmm.
because it's kept people interested. Even if the money isn't always there, even if it's not always 100% a hit, the people are interested and people are keep coming back at least to some degree. There's not empty theaters necessarily. Um and so I think that if the MCC stays in charge, it starts to wear down, right? It starts to become another cool. The Avengers are beating Galactus this time. Cool. The Avengers are beating, Doctor Doom this time. Cool. Spider-Man's beating the Sinister Six this time. Cool. Spider-Man's beating the Sinister Seven this time. It becomes it starts to become a lot more repetitive than it already is, because they're taking the safe bets.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think the the thing I was going to say is that there's the um, group of fandom that has a certain perspective on certain types of movies, and will review bomb them in advance, and just really not as how am I trying to say this? Like they're just there's a certain group of fans that like to say, is the MCU dead?
Yeah,
They
yeah, yeah,
immediately hate on everything. They hate on Brave New World before it even comes out. They hated on the Marvels before it even came out. And maybe those voices are quieted, but then I think
yeah.
you
I
would
agree.
just have a different group of voices that are saying, hey, you're not taking any challenges. You're just doing the safe thing. You're just trying to, make money off of toys and in video games. And you're not trying to do the things creatively. We're certainly not getting like James Gunn's not around. He's not
Right.
doing anything.
Yep.
Feige's gone. That's probably like the biggest impact would be like he is completely gone. And then you just end up with like a Kathleen Kennedy running things, and it just like completely devolves, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's I think it probably would have maybe made more money in a short amount of time versus the longevity, and maybe dollars and cents wise, the MCU that exists in our reality um maybe made a little bit less than what the MCC version of the MCU would have made, but I think it would not have lasted as long. And it maybe
Yeah,
wouldn't have had the same cultural impact either.
yeah.
I
No, I
don't know.
agree. I agree. I think that is all correct. So
Well, let's talk about let's close out here, David. We have the big main event, what everybody came here for, our rankings. So, as you guys, if you're a longtime listener, we during our reviews, instead of trying to place the movie in a specific place in its standings in the MCU, we try and say top third, middle third, bottom third. Partially for time and partially because we would drive ourselves insane trying to figure that out every single movie and what order everything goes in. But here in the Saga review, we have decided we want to conglomerate everything. We have 23 movies in this saga. We want to decide where they land. What's number 1? What's number 23? Where we go. So we put in the time. We've rewatched them all. Please remember, these are also based on like opinion, right? So as much as I joke about it being ultimate definitive, it's ultimate definitive for us. And there's some tough decisions in there. We'll kind of talk through this. We're not going to blitz through our list. I'd also encourage anybody who is playing along at home, rank along at home, post it on the Ears Up Patreon or on the Ears Up Discord, over in the Marvel channel. Post it in the comments on Spotify if you're listening on Spotify. Send us an email with your rankings. Maybe we'll talk about those in a future episode or something. We'd love to get some audience participation on this. We'd love to see, what you guys thought. If you have thoughts on our rankings, let us know. Our email is punypod at earsup-podcast.com. Shoot us an email. Let us know what you're thinking. But without any further ado, David, let's go. We're going to go 23-1. We'll save the best for last. And the way we're going to work this is basically we're just going to start at a rank. We're going to say what our movies are there. We'll talk about maybe why they're there, and we'll move on. So number 23 is where we're going to start. I have... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I have Incredible Hulk.
Same.
What do you have? Yeah. Incredible Hulk, it's enjoyable, and not to spoil Brave New World too much, but it did finally get a sequel in Captain America Brave New World. It's a Universal movie. I want to say that, and I think it shows. When you watch that movie, you go, "Oh, this could be Fast and the Furious," right? Or this could be Gone in 60 Seconds. This could be I guess Gone in 60 Seconds is not Universal, but the color tones of the movie are very much of the Universal oeuvre. The themes of the movie are that way. Liv Tyler's acting is god awful. But it is enjoyable. I think what's interesting here, what I have found through this podcast, is there is not a movie in the Infinity Saga that is not worth revisiting. From 23-1, every single one of them is worth watching at some point. So, David, anything else to say about Incredible Hulk?
No, it sucks. I'm just kidding. Something had to be the worst, and that's it. I mean, it is what it is.
I agree. Moving up to number 22. So here I have at number 22 Thor: Dark World.
Same.
David, what about you?
Same.
Nice. Look at us being all consensus-y and I'm not surprised. These two were going to be the bottom. David, what do you have to say about Thor: Dark World?
It sucked too. It's okay. I mean, like something has to be at the bottom, and it just there are parts of it I liked, and on rewatch I did have a greater appreciation for the breadcrumbs they're trying to lay for the future. It was all right. It's okay.
Yeah, it's no Citizen Kane, but let's see here. I suspect we might go through some differences here.
Here's where it starts to deviate.
Number 21. David, I'll let you go first on this one. I've gone first a couple times here.
Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 2.
All right.
Almost unwatchable on rewatch. These were stocks, this would be the big dropper over the period of time. Just for the reasons we talked about before. I know it's higher for you probably, and you probably have a different 21. I think I know what your 21 is, but I'll let you go.
21 for me was Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yep, that one's 20 for me.
Yeah, it's funny. You and I swapped, so we'll talk about both real quick here. So we talked about our Iron Man 2 a little bit in our least improved, and we talked about a lot of the flaws with it up there. It's gross. It's just uncomfortable. It's not great. I think if you can get past that, though, there is some fun in it, right? There is some fun parts to Iron Man 2. Like the fights are fun. The Stark Expo stuff is fun.
Mm-hmm.
The Disney kind of reference to Howard Stark, like the way Howard Stark is set up as Disney, is kind of fun. I think there is some fun to that movie, but it is so weighed down with the misogyny and it's just gross, and it's uncomfortable. It was our introduction of Black Widow into the MCU. Unfortunately, I mean, good on Scarlett Johansson for sticking it out
I
through
was
that
thinking
and
the
then coming
exact
back.
same thing. It was
But
like, God bless you for like coming. I guess you are getting paid to do it. So,
yeah,
and she was actually financially, she was paid better than most of the other actors because she was like the most, like in demand at the point in
yeah,
time. But
yeah.
so was that 20 for you? Iron Man 2, what number was that for you?
Iron Man 2 was 20 for me.
Okay.
And then Ant-Man and the Wasp was 21. So Ant-Man and the Wasp, man, that's just like that was such a promise. Like going and actually that's one that like kind of going back to it. There was I forgot how like interesting Ghost's story kind of was in that. Um and how she wasn't really a villain. Um but ultimately Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I think we're getting into that territory of like these movies were just kind of there.
Hmm.
Like this territory of movies is kind of they were just there.
Yeah. Um, yeah, they're just kind of there. This is Ant-Man and the Wasp is one that was I went back to look and see where I had originally kind of guesstimated where they would fit in the top, middle, or bottom third. And this is one that went from the mid to the bottom for me.
Yeah. Yeah, same here. I had guessed mid, and it dropped into the bottom for sure.
Yep. Yep.
All right, number 19. What you got?
Oh, man, this is going to break your heart. Iron Man 3.
Ah,
Um,
killing me, Smalls. No,
sorry, man. Like it just the villains didn't work. I didn't really like the Extremis storyline.
yeah.
A lot of pluck. I did like Gary in the van. There were some funny parts in it, and I did enjoy. I think you touched on this earlier. I enjoyed seeing, a lot of Robert Downey Jr. like, you know, being the kind of practical scientist. Rebuilding his, coming up with the traps, going to the hardware
Right.
store and creating all the fun stuff. I mean that part I
Tony the
really,
mechanic kind of
yeah,
stuff.
totally,
Yeah.
really enjoyed that part. But it just doesn't really. It just didn't hold up for me. Again, that's where we get our famous beat Gwet comment that still makes me cringe to this day. And
Yeah.
yet I repeat it on most of the podcasts just to try to make you cringe as well. So anyway, that was my number 19. How about you? What's your number 19? I
Number
think I know what it is.
number 19 is Captain Marvel.
Oh, okay.
For me. And I will say I liked Captain Marvel going in. I think the revisit punished it a little bit because when you go into it with a critical eye, the things like the overbearing 90s overlay, I'm going to call it an overlay rather than like setting, because that's really what it ended up being. Like the 90s of it all ended up being this kind of wet blanket that just diluted the whole movie. Um and so I think that was challenging. Um yeah, I like Captain Marvel as a character. I will say I really like where we get to Captain Marvel in the Marvels. I know that we're probably going to have an interesting conversation once we get there, but like I think Brie Larson was a challenging choice for like the stoic superhero version of Captain Marvel. Like that does not fit with Brie Larson, and so I think the movie suffered because of that. I think like the little bit more silly, sarcastic version of Captain Marvel that we get in future iterations is more her style, and I think the character became better over time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
I
yeah,
I had
Captain
it at
Marvel.
13. I had it a few spots higher. For the same reasons you noted. It was I did enjoy the Fury backstory quite a bit. That was pretty cool to see. The just they I think the script just wasn't great, and the part that's a little bit tough on rewatch once you know the spoiler, like the whole thing the the movie was written for the gotcha. It wasn't written to like develop her character. So I had it 13. I probably could have bumped it down a couple more notches, but
That's fair.
what
What's
is
your what's oh, you want me to go first on
yeah
18?
what so um Yeah, what's your 18? And we'll just talk the movie by movie.
Yeah, 18 Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Wow.
So
Eric is
Guardians
gonna
of
be
the
so
Galaxy
sad.
2. I know, and I did enjoy, like, it's a pretty movie. Guardians 2 is a very, very pretty movie. But I would say that we are getting into the section of, like, it's just kind of there. I prefer Guardians 1. I prefer Guardians 3, right? And so I think Guardians 2 is just kind of there, which is unfortunate because I really like the actor who played Ego. Now I'm of course dropping his name as I was going to say it. But all I can think of is Herb Brooks, but that is another character he played in Miracle. Kurt Russell. There we go. That took way too long.
It's okay.
But for an actor that I say I like. But yeah, I like Kurt Russell, but I think Ego ended up kind of just being another cardboard villain. There is definitely obviously the storyline of like Peter being more than just Terran and all that is interesting, but yeah, ultimately fell a little flat for me.
I had it 12. I could again. It's the middle part of the like the top is pretty obvious, the bottom's pretty obvious, and then the stuff that's kind of like that, the glob, if you will, in the middle, like that stuff is a little bit more fluid. I could see the critiques of Guardians of the Galaxy 2. It is. I might even argue that I might enjoy the holiday special more.
That's fair. That's fair.
But I would say that 1 and 3 big gap, and then 2 for sure. So I had it at 12.
Yeah. 17. I had our first Avengers entry of this ranking, Avengers: Age of Ultron, at 17.
I had it at 16.
Nice.
So
We're coming
fairly
close
close
together.
ranking. It's not, they're the critique of the movie is that just the Ultron, in my mind, like the Ultron villain was fine. But I think like having like a robot villain is just, for some folks, is just a little off-putting, if you will.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I wonder if this movie would have done better coming out today,
Probably.
where AI is just a hotter topic than it was.
Yeah, totally. Probably so. Then I can make the joke about the robot taking our villain jobs, which I always make it work. Robot taking my job. They, knowing there are things to like about the film. I made the joke earlier about the enhanced, and that still, irks me to this day. It's too bad they didn't have the rights way back when.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is the worst Avengers movie we've had, hopefully ever. I'm hopefully the Doomsday and Secret Wars are better than this. So that was your 17.
Yeah.
My so
You said you're 16, so it's your 15 right now is what
I've not touched on my 18 or my
okay.
17 or my 1654. Yeah, so my 18 is Doctor Strange.
Okay. I have Doctor Strange at 12.
Okay.
So we're seeing where some of these are starting to bubble out, where like yours are a little bit lower than mine, but you're gonna make Eric sad now.
I am going to make Eric very sad. No, Doctor Strange is fine. I think part of it is the character and the mysticism. Like, I never really loved Doctor Strange comics. I liked him as a character in the Avengers. I think, I think the story is fine. I do think, villain's a little weird. Let's be honest. And so for that reason, I just, little too mystical for me, and just, it's fine for me.
That's
How
fair.
about you?
That's fair. Let's see here. So Doctor Strange, I had up at 12.
Okay.
And I think this is where the podcast may actually get really interesting in the coming years. Is like, I really like the heady weird stuff. Like that
Mhm.
that is my bread and butter, that's my jam. And so I really really liked that. I liked the I do agree the villain is a little bit of just a villain for villain's sake. And the recasting of the Ancient One, well, great for gender, gender diversity, not great for racial representation. Um, but I did, ultimately I enjoy the movie. It's a fun one to watch for me. So I that's why it crept up into that midsection a little bit more than the bottom.
I would like to amend my earlier, go back about an hour and a half ago on the podcast. The worst fake thing is the accent of
Oh
Benedict Cumberbatch in the
yeah.
movie. Dormammu, I've come to bargain. Anyway, okay.
Oh man.
Sorry about that. Okay,
What was
go ahead.
So you said there was one other that we were missing. Was it your 17?
Oh yeah, I've got my. We've gotten up to my 19. What is your? So we got your 18. What's your 16?
My 16 is Ant-Man.
Okay, it's my 14.
Fair enough. Again, kind of just there. Yeah, not much to say about it. Fun heist movie. Like it's in the middle. We're getting into the area where we can start to warm up about these a little bit, right? I think it's a fun movie. I like the Scott Lang character. Good choice on them to do Scott Lang instead of Hank Pym as their
Yeah,
Ant-Man. Um, it was a risk, right? I don't think that a character like Ant-Man reads all that well with 2000s audiences versus a 1960s when or 40s when he was created type audience. Um, but yeah, I think um
I do applaud the fact that you had Ant-Man, which appeared at a time in the MCU, like right after like Winter Soldier and Thor: Dark World. You could have something grounded in Earth. That's definitely more neighborhood type of superhero, not necessarily like
yeah, it wasn't in space.
cosmic gods or what have
Yeah.
you. And it was funny, and you could have basically like a heist movie, and it was Paul Rudd is perfectly cast and super charming in the movie, and he basically like makes the movie entirely enjoyable. So
Yeah. And I was right first time around. Sorry, it was the 60s. I'm like shuddering myself cuz I won Marvel trivia on my cruise, but I almost didn't because of not knowing my difference between golden and silver age. So Ant-Man was 60s. I was right the first time, not 40s. Second time I said
turn
so.
in your nerd card,
I know,
Ryan.
man.
Come
I
on,
know.
man. So
So
that's your
what's your
16.
Yeah, we're missing your 17, I
My
think.
17 is Far From Home.
Oh wow. Okay, I have it all the way up at 11. And I think that's just we talked about this during the episodes a little bit, right? Our difference on Spider-Man,
Yep,
just our different takes on Spider-Man.
totally. I was going to make a stupid joke, but like, I like movies about adults. You like movies about high school kids. Like, what kind of
Yeah.
creep are you? No, I'm just kidding. No,
No.
they're well done. Tom Holland is great. Again, I do enjoy a neighborhood type superhero. I enjoy seeing New York City. I enjoy like the realness of it.
Yeah.
There's humor. There's the kind of teenage angst. Just Spider-Man has never been like my favorite character. I do really appreciate how Marvel has done a far better job than Sony bringing it to the screen for sure.
Yeah. No, I agree with all of that. I think out of the two Spider-Man movies we have, it is distinctly the lower ranked of the two. Um
I bet we have the same 15. What's your 15?
um well, no, we don't have the same 15 cuz I had Iron Man 3 at 15.
Oh, you have Iron Man 3 at 15. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Um let's see, 14.
14
What
is
do you have at 15 actually? I guess
15 is Thor.
15 is Thor. Okay. 14 Thor is 14 for me, so
Okay.
right there together.
Yep.
It was fun. It was what it was. Natalie Portman in her primary, I guess, her only Infinity Saga. Well, no, she was in Dark World as well.
She was in Dark
But
World. Her deleted footage appeared in Endgame. Yeah, it just we talked about it. As far as the story goes, I mean, they pulled off a Thor movie, which again, if the MC, if is that like your A tier character? No, I think the character they had to like shift a lot, and over time, obviously became much more humorous. Less focused upon like the relationships. Yeah,
big casting risk too. A lot of people forget this, that like both Tom Hiddleston and Chris Hemsworth were unknowns at the time
Mhm.
of this movie. Like they're super mega stars now, obviously, but like at the time that this movie came out, I don't think this was either of their first movies, but it was like very, very, very like early on. Nobody really knew who these people were, which I think was really important to the MCU, right? Because to that point, they had Iron Man, where they were rehabilitating Robert Downey Jr., which is really important. Robert Downey Jr., I think, was a very good cast for Iron Man because his arc is so similar to Tony Stark's, and he has a lot to pull from for that. And I think you needed some star power to kick off the MCU. But by the time we got to Thor, these are unknowns, and that's a risk for a new franchise to do that.
So
Yeah.
it sounds like you are ignoring his work as Craig on the Fergus MacPhail TV series, George Whiteside in Saddle Club, and King Arthur in Guinevere Jones. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, the movie's fine. On rewatch, the parts of it I particularly enjoyed. Again, if you want to make fun of like the bad wigs and the facial hair, that's part of it. But
So you
so
had Captain Marvel at 13.
I did 13. Yep. Yep.
My 13 is Captain America First Avenger.
Okay.
Where'd you have that?
I had that at 10.
Okay.
So we're like right now, like I'll share the spreadsheet when I'm done, but like I kind of have things like in tiers, if you will, not just top, middle, third, but we're kind of in the real middle tier for me. I really like Captain America: The First Avenger. The amount of breadcrumbs in that movie is wild.
Yeah.
I think it was also probably, I have to think about this a little bit, but maybe the best origin story we've seen.
Yeah.
Right.
I would agree.
Like as you think of like in a traditional superhero movie, Spider-Man gets bit in the beginning of the movie and you see how he gets his powers, or, Bruce Wayne's parents get killed and you see Bob, and that's your typical origin story. They do a very, very good job of it. So I liked it. I think it's good. So
Yep.
what's your 12?
Let's see here. Moving back over to my 12. 12 was Doctor Strange.
Okay.
We're pretty well caught up. Basically, I think, did we miss anything through 10 for you? Is there any
My
numbers?
11.
What was your number 11?
My 11's Homecoming. Spider-Man Homecoming.
Okay. That's my number 8.
Okay.
We're seeing where our bubbles are, but Homecoming was fun. I I love that they called it Homecoming, just as like a little bit of like, yeah, see, he's coming home to the MCU. It's a classic high school comedy movie. Like there's with a superhero wrapping paper.
So I'm looking at your, okay. I'm in my top 10 now. Have I missed anything outside of your top 10?
Nope.
Okay.
I don't think so. Cause yeah,
Okay.
Hulk, Dark World. Yep, we're good.
So we'll have interesting. Okay. What's your number 9?
My number, I guess I was saying top 10. Number 10
10.
for me is Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Wow, I had that at 6.
That's fair. And it's good, right? The top 10, I would say, I don't hold me to this because I'm think of this on the spot. I don't know that my top 10 changed that much after this. So with the multiverse saga considered, I don't know that my top 10 changed that much. There's there's maybe 2 projects in the multiverse saga that maybe squeak their way into the top 10. But yeah, so that to say, like, these are arguably the top 10 Marvel movies of all time. Like, these are very, very good movies.
I'll be honest. I can't. I don't know if anything's going to get into my top 10 from the last 2 phases, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
So your 10 was Winter Soldier. I love Winter Soldier. I think it's a fantastic film. It's what Brave New World aspired to be, pre extensive reshootings and rewritings. The Bucky as the murderous assassin, he's great in it.
Yeah.
You got a cool team up with Natasha. You get some Falcon. You get the espionage. We discover like Shield has been infiltrated by Hydra, and we get some of the most iconic fight scenes. The elevator scene is maybe my number one favorite. It's like action fight scene. It's so good. It's a great movie. I love it. I don't like they shot it in Cleveland, and try to pass it off as DC, but whatever. All right. Got your 10. What is your 9?
Number 9 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1.
Okay.
What do you got? Where you got Guardians?
I have Guardians at number 5.
Wow. Okay. I think Guardians is super fun. I do enjoy Guardians a lot. I think that it's obviously it was cool to see them hard launch a team like that.
Mm-hmm.
The soundtrack we already talked about. It's great. Yeah, I think it's super, super fun. And again, these top 10, they're all really great movies, honestly.
You got to pick your favorite child. Just pick one.
Yep.
Okay. What is my 8? Well, no, I'm sorry. I didn't go by 9. That's your 9. My 9 is Iron Man.
Okay.
That's
another, that's
4 or 5
4 for me. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I figured that one was going to probably be a little bit of a difference for us.
Yep. I think it's, again, for what it had to do, like, it couldn't fail. Yeah. Right? It couldn't fail. Otherwise, the whole blueprint is gone. It's getting tossed out. So in that sense, if you grade it on the curve of its importance, it's top 3, right? Yeah. If you're talking about just importance. But I don't think the importance correlates to like how good it is. It's a fine watch. You can't ding it for the CGI at the time. Robert Downey Jr., they pulled him off a trash heap of actors, and they pulled it off. And for that sense, it deserves deserves a really good ranking. It's just, as a movie on its own, I don't think it's as good as the ones that are above it. But
no, that's fair. And I do think overall, my one theme I'm looking at my ranking, and I think fun is I think I overweighted fun maybe in some ways, but versus like cinematic masterpiece. And so I think that's where like Iron Man gets a couple bonus points probably on my ranking. Plus it's Iron Man, and I love Iron Man. I loved Iron Man before he was a movie. Iron Man has been my favorite character for a very long time. I love the suits, the robots, the technology. That's my jam.
Well, you just crapped on Guardians of the Galaxy, so I don't think you love fun that much, my man.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, my 10 now. Your 8. We have your 8.
My 8 is Homecoming. What's your 8?
My 8 is The Avengers.
Marvel's The Avengers. I have that at number 6. They did it, right?
They did it. No, they did it. They pulled it off. They did it. Like everything in Phase 1 was building towards it. You did a realistic looking team up film with a bunch of, if you think about, just ridiculous CGI, and some great wigs. You don't want to miss out on the wigs. Just the battle in New York, so iconic, looks great, even holds up today, still fun to watch.
And every movie franchise from then on has tried to copy it, right? DC tried to copy it. They tried to copy that formula of like individual movie working towards a team up. Everybody has tried to do that, and nobody has done it as well as Marvel did, I don't think.
No,
So,
well, see Craven and come talk to me later.
yeah, right. Well, and that's the thing, right? That was Sony's whole idea, was like they were going to create this villain in this
Mm-hmm.
verse that was going to do the same thing. It was going to be Craven and Venom um and Madam Web and all of those that were gonna like. I think Carnage is in some of the Venom stuff, and that was all going to culminate in like a Sinister Six movie, and
Mm-hmm.
they just couldn't make it happen.
I was just waiting. When are we getting the Lizard movie?
Well, and to some degree, even that was like the dark days of the Fox side of things, right? That's what they were trying to do with X-Men Origins. X-Men Origins was originally going to be a set of movies. They were going to do Wolverine and Gambit and Professor X, and do all their origins, and then come together come back together again in a X-Men movie, and it just didn't work.
It did not work, to be clear. All right. All right. We did my 8. We did your 8. Need
7.
your 7.
Captain America Civil War.
Same.
Nice. Hey, we came together on one.
I think we're going to mostly align as we get a little bit higher up. Yeah, it's Civil War. Again,
it's so fun. It's just like on that fun factor, the fights, the introduction, like that movie is one long fight. It's nothing but fight scenes.
mm-hmm.
And they're all so good. The introduction of Spider-Man, Black Panther,
Mm-hmm.
fantastically well done. The idea of they communicated the idea of Steve Rogers not being a soldier of the US in a really interesting way too, and on rewatch that stuck out to me more, of just like he stands for the ideals, not for the country, which was really interesting. In the like And I think it just created this cool conflict. And like I know that Perlmutter didn't want heroes versus heroes in the MCU, but I think it
And
gave
he
so
was
much
right. And
texture to this.
he was
Right?
entirely right. That
It
thing's
gives so
not.
much texture to the characters and to their relationships, right?
They're like, yeah, that's not going to make any money. And then you're like, oh, wait a second. Civil War made how much did Civil War make? Like $1.15 billion.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm wrong there. All right, so that's number 7. It has a little bit of everything. It's got you did a ingenious way of bringing in some new characters, previewing what was supposed to be the new Avengers. It is funny.
Yeah.
The Ant-Man stuff when he was in Germany wakes up. Can you move your seat up? No, that's a different. Oh, wait, is that the same movie? No,
I think that.
Yeah.
That's the same movie.
Can you move your seat up? No.
Yeah, that like whole little triplet of like basically Captain America, his old sidekick being Bucky, and his new sidekick being Falcon, and their like interplay is so fun.
Yeah. So, all right. So we need your
5.
5. What is your 5?
Or because I already said 6 was Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
5 is Thor Ragnarok.
It's my 4.
And that's, I mean, yeah, again, super fun. I think depth of character to Thor and his relationship with Loki was really good in this movie. And it was Thor who had lost, right? He was not at the top of his game at this point. He had lost a little bit in Dark World,
mm-hmm.
and in Age of Ultron. And yeah, and then you also have like the Hulk piece of it, where we get a better, like, not just a brute, you get Hulk being funny.
Mm-hmm.
Meek and Korg are great additional, like, Meek, Korg, and Valkyrie are all great supporting cast, yeah, and the Grandmaster. Even though the Grandmaster is just Jeff Goldblum being Jeff Goldblum, he's still super fun.
Yeah. It's if you asked me when we started this, where Thor Ragnarok would be, I would not have thought it was in my top 5. I enjoyed the movie, but then going back and seeing it again, better appreciating the character, visually, like we don't really talk about that too much.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like it looks so cool. Like to be able to pull off. A lot of times you're watching these movies and you're like, okay, yeah, that's Cleveland, or yeah, they're that's Atlanta, right? And you recognize it looks like somewhere you've been, and you've created something that looks completely, obviously out of this world. It's again very well done, very funny. This is the movie where they found the right Thor. The fact that this Thor reminds you nothing of Dark World.
Right.
It does. It's not even like the same character. It's so funny, but it's great. I love it.
Well, our 1, 2, 3 are the same 3 movies. Now it's what order we put them in that'll probably differ here. So we're going to do these one at a time. I'm not going to expose what I'm going to say is like, let's do like our third and then each talk about our third, second, first.
I know. I already know your order.
Okay. What's my number 3? What's my number 3?
Your number 3 is, I should know this from the Endgame. No, I'm sorry. Infinity War.
Yep. That's my number 3. What's your number 3?
Endgame.
Yeah. I kind of wondered if that's the way it would go. And again, I think that's, and I say this and it sounds bad, but like, I think that's like just the difference and we talked about this a lot, and I don't want to rehash too much of what we talked about in phase 3 review because all these are from phase 3, but ultimately I think I agree that like as a actual piece of cinema, Infinity War is maybe better than Endgame, but I'm a sucker for a big bombastic fight.
It's a fun ride. Even before the fight, all the going back in time history stuff, which I think we mentioned at the time, I really enjoyed on rewatch. The time when Tony's talking to Howard, and very sentimental. It's. Again, we're splitting hairs here. Yeah,
right.
I had Infinity War. That's my number 2. Endgame was my number 3. Black Panther was my number 1. So is it Black Panther your 2 and Endgame number 1?
You got it.
Yeah,
you got it. And that's, we talked about it at length on our last episode, and so definitely go back and listen to that. We're a ways into this episode now, but yeah. So let's see here. Let me see if I can get this to rank.
I did it already.
The consensus, show consensus. Okay,
I do.
What? Just rattle them off 23-1 show consensus.
Oh well, let me. Okay. 23-1. Incredible Hulk, Thor: Dark World, Ant-Man and the Wasp tied at 20.5. Iron Man 3, Avengers: Age of Ultron, Captain Marvel, Doctor Strange, Ant-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, 14.5 Thor, Spider-Man Far From Home, average 14. God, I know people love to hear me do math. And then we go, and then we have more of like a true consensus. First Avenger had 11.5, Spider-Man Homecoming, and then it goes Winter Soldier. There was a tie for quote unquote 7th, 1, 2, 3 with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, Civil War, and Avengers. That then Iron Man, that was next up, and then Ragnarok, Infinity War, Endgame, Black Panther.
There you have it. That is the definitive way to rank the MCU. No, but honestly, like it's some really great movies. It's been a really fun ride as a podcast to go through all these. So please, we would love to hear your rankings. We'd love to hear your thoughts on our rankings. Maybe I'll actually put them in the show notes. I forgot to do that last time I said I was going to do it, but I'll try and get them into the show notes this time. But we thank everybody for joining us in this journey. Please go listen to all the other shows on the network. We have Bantha Milk, which should be starting up on Andor next month. Supreme Resort is doing their third month mental illness on bracket on the Salty 16 pools, best resort pools in the Disney resorts. We have who else? The flagship show for the network, the Petroses, or as I like to call them, the Petrosi. Went back to the parks for the first time in 5 years. So, for those who don't know, the main show's about Disneyland. And they with everything going on in the world, they had not been back to Disneyland until a couple weeks ago. So they just did an episode on that. Really, really great show. Honestly, I would say if you are somebody who has not been to the parks or you are worried about going to the parks due to everything going on in the world, go listen to that episode of the flagship show of the network. Really, really thoughtful. Really well done. What else do we have? Scraping the Vault should be doing Hot Frosty very soon. The Netflix classic Hot Frosty. Bantha, or I already said Bantha. Buena Vista Boys should be back soon. I think that they are recording their episodes. They kind of do a record and then release structure. So they're recording their second season right now, and then those should start to release. Top of all that, there's the Patreon. Go listen to the Patreon. It's a good time. And last but not least, I'll plug what we have coming up next month. You will get the payoff to our bet from last year, where we watch Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift.
Great.
And then after that, we'll get started in on the Infinity Saga, starting with the Disney Plus shows. So we'll start with WandaVision in May. So coming up quick on that. So really excited for what's going forward here. David, anything to share before we get out of here?
Nope. Thanks for everyone listening to this point in time. This will probably be 3 episodes at the end of the day, but no, it was a fun time. I was glad we did this.
Absolutely, it's been a blast. With all that being said, Puny Pod will return in Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. I don't think we have a after credit Easter egg for this, really. So
nope, just fresh baked.
Fresh baked. Enough said. Bye. I love you. Bye bye.
Love you too, man.